Another corporate scandal has hit, this time Tongaat-Hullets, for financial irregularities that affected the company's share value. On Monday, trading in South Africa's biggest sugar producer was suspended on the JSE and in London. Tongaat asked that its listing be suspended because of accounting irregularities. Tongaat says an ongoing financial review has revealed that certain past practices do not reflect the company's business performance accurately. The company's equity, the value of the business after liabilities in its 2018 financial results, has been overstated by between 3.5 billion rand to 4.5 billion rand. To get an insight of what's happening at this company is Lavan Gopaul, who is director at Merchant Africa. Lavan, good afternoon.
Good to see you again, Colin.
Right. Did this come as a shocker? I mean, like, to have a corporate scandal like this where financial results are playing out like this, to be inflated, is this another Steinhoff in the making?
I think the market was taken by surprise. Certainly, there were some indicators over the past few days, and you saw the share price slide down considerably. What really brought this to the fore were some of the investors that clamored for further guidance from the company, especially in light of the fact that in the recent set of financials, there was a positive showing of earnings, and the company directors had all been paid very handsome bonuses. So what became something of a scare for investors was these large bonuses. Of course, now that the earnings has been restated, and possibly a swing, as you've mentioned, of between 3.5 to 4.5 billion rand, it becomes reckless that bonuses were paid out. What adds to the saga is the fact that several thousand people may lose their jobs, and that has already been highlighted by the company over the last few months.
So, I mean, like, when the red flags, I mean, I remember there was a warning that the share value would decline, given that the earnings, according to the company results, were going to have a spiral downward, rather a downward spiral.
Yeah. So generally what happens is companies have got an obligation to make an announcement if there's a material change in terms of their earnings or some of their important financial details. And in this case, the swing was very significant. So if I use an example, if earnings came through at, say, 5 Rand a share and they were restated at 4.90 Rand per share, I think the market would absorb that as an acceptable variance. But where it goes from a large positive earnings number to deep negative, it has created shockwaves, but this is disturbing from a number of different perspectives. Colin, we trust the auditing community to deliver a good job in terms of reporting. The entire financial system is based on the fact that this is a responsible professional group, and we can trust their auditing skills. Now, we've been let down only a year or two back with Steinhoff, which has had a significant impact on pension funds and other major investors losing considerable amounts of money. And hot on the heels of that scandal comes this Tongaat saga, which is still playing out. Unfortunately, it is the same firm of auditors that have been fingered in terms of auditing the books and with material significant changes.
So, Lavan, the former CEO as well as the CFO served since 2002, and in 2018 they resigned, and we have the financial coming out like this. Was this not leaving too much to be desired for the shareholders and the board when this happened?
So we will wait to hear further announcements, but as you read through that stock exchange news item, they had been significant players at the board level for about a decade and a half. So it's not unusual for people to resign after such a long spell.
But two people at the same time almost.
And this is, of course, just a short period before that very sinister bit of financials were reported. As you said, both those were also recipients of large bonuses, somewhere in the order of 6 million rand each.
So now, how has trading affected in the markets, and what do you think about the position of shareholders and also the custodian of these shares, which is the board that's supposed to give a strategic direction and ensure that the monies of the investors are secured?
So there were a few novel instances that have come out of this. Generally, the JSE will suspend listing of a company under very special circumstances. This is not something that is done in haste. There's very serious rules about how this conduct is performed. In this instance, it was unusual that the company executives, that is to say, the new composition of these board members at the executive level, made a request to the JSE to suspend the shares of Tongaat. And obviously, the suspension is done by way of a protection to the investor public. You'll appreciate that as rapid news items start to flow that affect the company, you can get wide swings, and that volatile behavior can also be the reason for considerable losses. Just to avoid that, the suspension of a share is done as a comfort measure until all of the news is settled, and that we will then appreciate true value with this company. It's important to note that Tongaat-Hullets has been a significant player within the sugar and starch industry in South Africa, and it has been an important player in that region of KZN for about 120 years, employing a number of people and, of course, being a very significant property player.
So what happens in October when it gets listed again? Are we going to see a dead cat scenario where probably the opening share trade value would be as low as possible?
So it may not necessarily be a further dwindling of the share price. There's probably going to be some comfort in the time that people have to digest all of the news. What is most likely to happen is that the financial position would be cleared up. You'll probably have a fair assessment of the worth of the company. Investors may then decide to place the share price possibly higher than where it is. It may even be lower, and this is all going to be spelt out once we've received that proper set of financials. For now, of course, people that are holders of the shares cannot sell. They cannot realize their funds. And of course, many large investors would also have been crippled by this. Many of their staff are also shareholders. Mind you, this company has also come out with a BEE transaction a few years ago, which has not been very successful. All told, Colin, in the last 1 year, the share has dropped by more than 80%.
So investing in the sugar industry, is the sugar tax a scare for any investor, or would you say this is a no-go area for now?
I would not say that. In general, the introduction of taxes is always going to be something that retards capital. But I wouldn't write off a sector simply because one of the players has come through with dubious reporting of their financials. There are a number of profits to be made in the sector. There have been years of very responsible business practice. It's unfortunate that we've had this incident for a company that has had a very good reputation over the years. Bear in mind, this also is a company that lists its shares on the London Stock Exchange. So you'll appreciate that long history and a lot of respect from the investment community may have been tarnished in this current set of reporting scare, but pretty soon we'll see a good set of financials that come out and give us a fair appreciation of the worth of this company.
When you look at the statement from Tongaat-Hullets Limited on their trading updates and their statement, they say while sugar production for the season increased, local market sales across the industry remain under considerable pressure. But they say that cane valuation thus have been rebased for the lower local market realizations. Why would they debase their production values?
So I suppose there'll be a variety of factors. Some of it may be related to the import of certain sugar and substitute products being another important aspect. Bear in mind that we think of Tongaat-Hullets purely as a sugar player, but they are a significant player within the glucose and starch sectors. And if you think about production for a variety of foodstuffs, it's not just sugar that goes in to add the sweet effect. So cornstarch and other additives are used, and Tongaat is a significant player in terms of starch as well as other related products. And as substitutes come in to the marketplace, they may alter the desirability or the demand for sugar per se.
Mm-hmm. What about heads rolling? Should the former executives be held accountable?
It has become a very important topic in South Africa. You've seen very drastic moves in terms of Steinhoff. You've seen a number of legal minds thinking about the next step. So I think that the powers that be will have to take important steps to prevent this from happening. All that investors are looking for is a fair game. So if the rules of the game are fair, you can invest with a clear conscience. Right now, that isn't the case. If certain executives have the ability to dip into the cookie jar and then take large bonuses thereafter, restating the financials, it becomes very difficult to have a fair game under those circumstances.
So, Lavan, on a parting shot, this sugar story is leaving a sour taste on the tongues of the workers. 5,000 people to lose their jobs, according to the announcement here. What do you say to that?
I say that this comes after years of cutbacks in terms of the labor force. For a variety of reasons, the sugar industry has gone through transformation, mechanism and other changes in terms of the industry have taken jobs away. But certainly in the last 4 or 5 years, cutbacks in terms of a number of different levels of staff have certainly hurt the community as a whole. But before the scandal was announced, a number of newspaper articles have been leading the fact that directors had been pocketing millions in terms of bonuses whilst they let go of staff, and people labeled this as reckless. So I think you're going to get a number of upset families, upset workers because of the movements in terms of or the decisions that have happened as a consequence of the directors.
And auditors who sing the same chorus.
Yeah, so that's very unfortunate. As I've mentioned, this is an industry that we're supposed to have faith in. We expect whatever they say to be truthful, and we follow our investments according to these reports. There will have to be a change that comes through from the auditing profession. Certainly they'll be under scrutiny, and I've already heard that heads have rolled in the auditing profession as a consequence of Steinhoff. There are some serious talks about changes that will happen in the auditing profession because of Tongaat, so we'll wait to see.
Right, Lavan, thank you so much for making
time
to speak to us. Okay, Lavan Gopaul is director at Merchant Africa. In other news, oil